Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
I'm Hilary, a mom in Oklahoma, and I am prepared to be embarrassed.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who is officially out of my book funk.
Yay! This is episode 11 of season 1, and welcome. Today, we are talking about our shortlist. So we plan to do every 10-ish or so episodes, just do a recap of our shortlist and see what we read, what we didn't read, what we thought, all that stuff. So we are excited, so buckle up. So Hannah, you are out of your book funk. That's good. I feel like you were in a book funk because I know you edit the episodes, but I have been doing the show notes, and it has been quite a while.
I feel like it has been, honestly, the whole summer. I really
Yeah.
feel like it has been months. And so, but yeah, I've been actually enjoying my books this week, and I know it's so sad, but I told Josh, he's like, "How's your book going?" And I was like, "I'm really liking it." And I was telling him, I'm like, "Man, it's been a long time since I have been like, oh, I'm really liking my book." Like it's been like not hate reading, but like grumpy reading for a while. So, yeah, I'm knock on wood before I go jinx myself again, but it's been pretty good this week.
I think how we've set it up, it has helped me a little bit. Like for those listening, Hannah and I record in advance, not a lot, but a few weeks in advance. And it has been nice because we're still recording, but we are approaching like a busy season in everyone's lives. So it has been nice because we have been doing episodes, but they haven't been like our traditional format. And that has been fun because it has allowed me to just read whatever I feel like reading, or as much or as little, or like continue on with series and just stuff like that. And I think it's been good for me. Like it's building my bucket of stuff to talk about because I will still talk about it. It's not going to be forgotten. But it has been nice just to be purely like mood reading, and
Yeah.
Noelle's back in school, so I feel like my routine is a little bit like getting a little bit back to normal. So I think that has helped a lot.
Yeah, I feel like that too. How has your reading been this week?
Good. I've started on my Instagram. If you don't follow me, I'm at Hilary Reads, but I have been posting just a couple days. We've just started school, but I have been posting my pickup line like saga, and I'm like I started at this page and I'm ending at this page, and that has helped me keep positive in a very stressful I hate pickup and drop off. It is the worst, but that has been a bright part of it is like I just go and I read in the car for an hour. So that is where I get the majority of my reading done now. So it's been good.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a love-hate with pickup line because I like it, but
Yeah, you're
also
not alone. Yeah.
no, my 1-year-old does not like it.
Yeah.
However, once he gets a hold of it, I think it'll be a fun time.
Okay. So Hannah and I have 9 books each to talk about. So we're going to get started because we have quite a bit. So I will say it's going to be interesting because I have not read everything on my short list. I don't think Hannah has read everything either, but almost. So we're just going to bounce back and forth and it's a pretty casual conversation. Just talk about what we thought about it. We're going to try to keep it spoiler free. But yeah, other than that, everything's on the table. And then at the end, we're going to talk about a recap of what we thought and what was going on or whatever. So, Hannah, what was your first book?
Okay, I also want to say that I want to do like a chart, like a pie chart or something for our Instagram of like we had 9 books on our short list, and I want to have a little pie chart for me and a pie chart for you, and like how many we read.
That's why I said I'm gonna be embarrassed because I'm like, I told Hannah going into this, all right, well, like this is gonna be your time to shine because you'll see. It's gonna show exactly how much of a mood reader that I am. So go ahead.
Okay, so my first, we're gonna start at the beginning. The first episode, I said I wanted to read the Falling for Summer series. And this was like a closed door series, all summer related,
Oh
about
yeah,
a
you
little.
started big. How many are there?
There's 7. So let's
Oh,
just, this
okay.
one is gonna probably be the longest thing I talk about because it's the series. So I'll try to go quick. Book 1, I brought to the podcast. Episode 2, I talked all about Summer Ever After by Courtney Kiesel. I loved it. It was silly, yes, and it is rare that I enjoy those types of books, but I think it just hit at the right time. I don't know. I really liked it. It was fun, lighthearted, but I felt like the chemistry was really, really good, and I enjoyed it. That was book 1. Book 2, Beachy Keen. I did not love this one, unfortunately. It felt slow for me. The female main character, she was like a difficult character for me, like, like the prickly, sassy type, which sometimes can just rub me the wrong way. And I don't know, I did not like her very much. She was just rude to me, and I felt for no reason. She was just like very rude to the main male character. Anyway, I'll stop there. It was just okay for me. Book 3 and 4, Plotting Summer and Summer Tease. I tried both of these and I DNF'd them both. Plotting Summer was just not pulling me in, and Summer Tease had a wild, just unhinged grandma. She did not like police officers. I had some issues there, and I don't know, guys. It just did not hit my personal preferences. And so those two I DNF'd. After the way that those books went for me, I said, no, I'm done. I took a pause. I have not continued. I will say I'm interested to read the books by Gracie Ruth Mitchell, which she wrote Beauty and the Beach, and also Cindy Steele's book, which is Rebel Summer. But I will say I am still feeling a little bit gun shy about it. I don't know. I think something that I struggled with was that all of the books, they follow the same timeline. So they overlap. For example, you see the same city events in every book. So it did feel a little repetitive to me.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like you see the 4th of July party every single book.
Oh, interesting. Do you see the other couples in each other books?
Yes.
Wow, that's elaborate.
Yes, and they had, like, charts,
Yeah.
seeing their process, I was really impressed. I think that the collaboration was probably better than most.
Yeah, like a true collaboration.
Yeah, they very much interwove them. Like, they put a lot of thought and effort into it. I will say, while I didn't finish the whole series, I would probably could try the others at a later time. I have seen a lot of people love them. My advice would be read the synopsis of them all and pick the one that sounds like something you like the most. Because again, some of the themes were repetitive. Like several of the books that I read, they all had like childhood crush or like brother's best friend. Like it was like common tropes that overlapped. So I would say pick one and go that way. So that's the Falling for Summer series.
Okay, so my first book on my short list was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I did read this one, and I believe I talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember at this point, guys, but I recently talked about this one. I did not like this book at all. It was such a huge letdown. I said it was like one of my most anticipated books coming up this year, and it felt really flat. Um, Very dumb characters, really, really great premise. It just was not executed well, in my opinion. It Yeah, so it was just so we started this first episode with a flop. Just yeah, real big flop. So that was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. Oh, and what's funny is I was like, "I pre-ordered this," and then after I talked about it, I saw several people that like, we're not book twins or anything, which we can talk about book twins maybe in another episode. We weren't book twins or anything, but, uh, they said some things about the book that like, they read it before I did, and I was like, "I don't like, I'm nervous about it." So I canceled my pre-order and then put it on a hold at the library because, like, brand new Kindle books are still pretty expensive. I think this
Mhm.
one was, like, $16. I
Oh
mean,
my
it's
goodness.
that's kind of a lot for an ebook to me,
Yeah.
which no big deal if it's something I love and, like, someone I wanna really support, but this
Yeah.
one, after I was, like, seeing some people that I trust not give it great reviews, I was like, let's put a library hold on it and test it out first," and I'm very glad that I did that because I would have just deleted it off my Kindle, like, forever
Immediately.
after yeah, be done with it either way, so, yes.
Okay, for my second one, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm considering this from my shortlist because basically, in lieu of The Sunrise on the Reaping, I talked about this in episode 7. I brought this to the podcast. So if you want to listen to the whole scoop there, you can do it on episode 7. But this book it was okay. It was a disappointment for me. It was not a terrible read by any means, but at the end of it, I did like the movie better than the book, which it feels a little like a crime to say that. But yeah. And Josh told me to mention because he was asking me about my short list in this episode, and he said, "You better mention that book has a lot of songs and the audiobook reads them out in a monotone voice."
Mm,
And I was like, "Oh my gosh," because I totally forgot
mhm.
that this was part of the way that like it just disconnected me from
Yeah.
the experience.
Okay, Lord of
Um,
the Rings is an example, that they do not do that.
yes.
Like, Andy Serkis does it, and I'm very impressed because he's like I'm like, "Where does he come up with these melodies?" Because he's like, "Da da 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 da
He's like,
da da."
"Ah, la, Billy B.
I
Bob," or
know.
whatever.
Yeah, like, he for real gets really into it, so I mean, but if you can't sing, you can't sing,
No,
so
but this one was not. It was like, I'm trying to think of it. It was just like, "You can take my paw, you can take my humor, you can take my wealth." And I was like, "Oh." Anyway, that's it. It was just okay. That's my second one.
Okay, so my next one, my book 2, was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Okay, so this is my controversial opinion. Guys, just this is not gonna be a good look for me, any of these, okay? So,
Me either.
I know it, okay? I already know. So, we will talk more about this in a couple episodes. We're going to do a DNF episode soon. Next week, I think we're gonna talk about why we DNF things, all about that, and then the week after that, we're gonna talk about our DNFs so far. But this is one of those. This is a DNF for me for now. I put DNF for now. I don't have the percentage with me right off the bat. So I did not say that this is like a DNF forever. I just stopped it because I don't know if it was just because my life was too busy and I could not focus or I was too stressed. Sometimes when I get really stressed, it's hard for me to sit down and just be like laser focused into especially I guess like a fantasy world and like a new magic system and I don't know. So this one I stopped it around I don't remember. It was not very far off, but it was maybe like 15%. I'd have to verify that. But it was just kind of slow to me, kind of boring. So I paused it for now. I didn't want to say no, not ever. I can't do it. So my question is if you have read it, should I continue on and like cuz I know sometimes you're like no, you need to push through because I know I felt like that about ACOTAR, the first book, like, I personally thought the first half of the first book was kinda slow, and I've heard a lot of people say you gotta push through, and then it did get pick up whenever she was, like, in the trials or whatever.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if I should push through or just maybe it's not for me. I don't know. I feel like everything about it said it was the right book for me. Everything. I just read it and I'm like, this is kind of boring.
Mm.
So I stopped it for now. But I'm not saying I won't ever try it again. But I did try the audio too, and I didn't like the narrator. She sounded like creepy. I don't know. I didn't like her voice at all. At all. So to me, that's a sure way to hate a book is so I just was like, no,
Yeah.
I need to just stop it. And I'm sorry to let you guys down for a second book. So that's it.
Okay, my third book is also a DNF, which there's a few. There's a few. And Love Proposed by Megan Rogers. This one makes me sad. I really, really loved book one, and I do recommend book one. Book one is Love Ignited. They're all standalone, and I loved that one. I thought it was very well done. So this is book two. I did DNF this book twice. So, like, I started it, I made it to 9%, and then I was like, I'm gonna pause this, I'm not feeling it. And then I tried again, and then I made it to 12%, which I know is super early to DNF, even for me. Like, that's really early. But the setup of this one, it just felt like a little bit too out there for me. I, I'm trying to think of how to even describe it. So, you have Lily. Lily, her favorite author is Oliver. And Oliver goes to the small town bookstore for a book signing. He meets Lily. They have a bad first impression, like terrible, but he apologizes. So she still hates him. She thinks he's a jerk, which is fine. So all of that happens in book one. That's the setup. But then in book two, like he's gone home, months have passed, he has writer's block. He remembers Lily and how drawn to her he was, and he's convinced that being around her will break his writer's block. So he goes back to her small town and he's like, he's like watching her at the coffee shop and he asks her if she will be his muse so he can write his next novel. And I just was like, this just feels weird and creepy to me. Like the whole setup and the whole premise, I just could not. I was like, I'm sorry. I just don't think that I can get into it because the setup was so like off-putting for me. I don't know. So I did DNF it. I really tried. I would still read the next book in the series because they are standalone, and I liked the author's writing in the first one. I think that just the plot of this one, I was like, what does a muse mean? Like, are you gonna like fake date? I don't know, guys. It just felt weird to me. So I'm sorry. That's book three.
Okay, so my book three is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I bought this one and then I did not read it. So
You still haven't read it?
no, I have not. I put it on my nightstand. I don't know what happened either because I had it on my nightstand and I think I texted Hannah a picture. I think I did because I was like, I'm gonna start this tonight, and I didn't ever. Like, I don't
So
know.
did you just not in the mood to do it?
So I think I put a note on here because I've been keeping an ongoing note about my shortlist, and I've heard a lot of mixed reviews.
Mm.
So I think I got nervous um because a lot of people were like, this is very dumb. This is very dumb. And it swayed me. It swayed my opinion.
You haven't even read it yet.
Well, that's going to be the theme of today. So,
Okay. All right. My book four, Isabelle and the Beast by Marie Soleil. This book, I did not read it, and I will say, in my defense, it is not out until next year. So I majorly jumped the gun on adding this to my short list. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was too excited. I saw the cover and I was like, ah, this sounds so fun. And yeah, it doesn't come out until January, guys. So it's not my
mm.
fault. Next.
I didn't do it.
I know, I was like, I'm sorry. I was short-sighted. I messed up.
Okay. My next book, number four, is On Wings of Dust and Ash by Brittany Wing. I did not read this one. Yeah. I said I didn't have okay, so whenever it came up, she popped up on my algorithm stuff, like, do you
Yeah.
like Pirates of the Caribbean and whatever. So I didn't have Kindle Unlimited at that time. I paused it.
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to catch up. I think I said that on books I own and library books and stuff. And so then I didn't have Kindle Unlimited. I just got it. Why are you still laughing? Okay.
Just keep going.
Excuse my sister.
I just think it's funny that you're like, I didn't read that one. Didn't read that one either. Not that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I've downloaded the book. So I have Kindle Unlimited again. I'm not gonna lie, I missed Kindle Unlimited. Like, I
Yeah.
know it's an expense, and I was doing like like adding up books of like, is it worth it? And that I think that's really important. I think both are good. Like, it was good to have it. It was good for me to pause and catch up like on stuff I own, but I am glad to be back because I had like a list of things like,
Mm-hmm. That's what
you
I
know,
do.
and I've been going through them. I've gone through 1, 2, I'm on my 3rd, and so I've downloaded this one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on my Kindle. I'm ready to get into it. I just haven't done it because I didn't have Kindle Unlimited, but now I have it again, so that's my plan. Oh, I saw the audios on Hoopla, I think, or
Is
the
it really?
library. Yeah, the library are on Hoopla. I'm just not the biggest
Mm.
audiobook fan. I'm very, very picky with them. So I didn't want to ruin my impression of it.
I have that book downloaded too. I've had it downloaded and I just haven't picked it up either. But I do. I'm like kind of hoping you'll get to it first, then you can tell me.
Yeah, I
Um,
plan to.
okay. Book number 5, Till You Came Along by Larissa Padilla. This is another one that I dived right into as soon as I added it to my list. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of thoughts, and I shared all about this one on episode 7. If you want to know all of my thoughts, you can find it there. But I was drawn to it for its promise of a second chance, marriage in crisis, amnesia situation, and it did give me all of those things. So overall, I would say it was a win for me.
Okay. Book number 5 for me is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I did read this one. I read this one and I loved it. This was one of my favorite books of the year so far. I've talked about this already, but I love this one. And Hannah and I were talking to one of our friends. She messaged us that she was interested in reading it. Um, and I do want to mention this is not a rom-com. I I'm even hesitant to call it's a romance. It is a romance, but man, I feel like this is romance plus, like plus a lot of other stuff. Like it has found family, family drama,
Hmm.
friendships, work. Like Abby is so good at putting a lot of elements in her book. So this is not just if you're like I don't read romance, like you might like Abby's stuff.
Hmm.
So I this is a really good one for me. Loved it. So yes, success. First success.
Yes. Book 6 for me is Heart of the Sea by Mariah Chavis. Okay, so for this one, I DNF'd at 20%. I, as I feel like I say this for all the DNFs, I really do try to push through. I think I saw this like on Instagram recommended it to me that it said if you like Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, then you'll like this. So I was really excited for those types of vibes, and I just unfortunately could not get into the story. So you're dropped into the middle of the action. There's very little backstory, and there's some info dumps that are randomly in there. There were some flashbacks here and there, and there would be like memories or long thought processes that were just in the middle of conversations, which were there to give you context for what was happening at that moment in time. But this style of writing, it just confused me a lot, and I just couldn't fully understand what was happening. Like the whole 20%. I was just like, what is I just could not understand what was happening. And I did look on Goodreads, which this is like I don't know if this is a good tip or a bad tip, but I did look on Goodreads and I did see other reviews saying similar things. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I think it's better if I just DNF at this point than to push through and then just like not love it. I don't know. Do you do that? Like if you're like not feeling a
Yeah.
book, do you like go
Yeah.
look? Because then you'll see some people who are like, oh, it was slow, but then it really got going.
Usually if it's an element that I am not liking, which I will talk about in a bit of the next book, like, if you're like, "Oh, it's feeling like it's a little bit whatever, silly," and,
Yeah.
like, but I'm really struggling because of this. It feels really silly, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through it, and then I'll look, and then usually with the one-star reviews, like, "Why did people not like this book?" And then if they're
Yes.
like, "This was silly," I'm like, "Okay, then
Yeah.
I'm probably not gonna this book is
And
probably not for me."
that's exactly what I do, and I do it like as a last ditch effort. I'm like, okay, let me just see if this is literally just me or if like other people have kind of have noticed that and didn't like it for those reasons specifically. So that was this, I think just maybe not compatible. So yeah, I'm sorry. I feel very every time I have like something sad or like negative to say, I'm like, I'm very sorry. I
I
feel
know, and it
like
makes me sad because I keep seeing more and more, like, authors are following us on Instagram, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, no." I don't wanna hurt
Yeah.
anybody's feelings,
Yeah,
but
I know.
gotta be done.
Yeah.
So, the thing that makes me feel better is a lot of mine are, like, very popular authors
Yeah, like they
that
don't
I don't think they're
care.
ever gonna see this ever, so
I know.
anyway, that's it. That's the only thing that makes me feel better. So my next book, man, guys, this was probably the doozy of all of them. This was Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. This was my book club book. I did not pick it. Someone else picked it, but in all honesty, it was on my TBR. I have no idea why. Probably because someone I followed just said this was such a good fantasy, and I added it to my list. And I did try it. I got it on, Kindle, and then I think I had an audiobook of it too. I don't know. I think I tried both. Um, this was a no, this is a major DNF. It was I don't know, I'm trying to think about how to tactfully talk about this book, which I will do so more in our DNF episode, but this was so, like, trashy. Extremely, like I don't know. It was not for me. It was so full of just, like, the entire theme. I'm like, I don't know what word to say. What's safe for work? I mean, it was incredibly pervasive. Everything about the story, everything was about intimacy, but not really like, I don't know. It was just not it was too much. And I get it, like, a lot of books will have I'll say, like, it has a scene, but you can skip it, or, like, one of the other ones that said, "Yeah, there was an open door scene, and on audio, I didn't like it." No, this was, like, the whole book was open door, it was raunchy, it was extremely raunchy, and it's deceiving because it's set in, like, old England, and you're like, "Oh, we have top hats, and we have, like, all these ladies with bustles." No, these people are, like, performing acts in public, and, like,
Ugh.
they're having, like, a meeting, and people are touching themselves, people are and that's happening in every way, everywhere, everybody. It is
Why?
I don't
Is it
know.
just like the purpose of like just having it to like that's the point of the book is to be gross?
I don't
Or like
know. I think
smut,
it's
you
just
know
to
what
be
I
shock
mean?
factor, I guess. Like, they'll be having a meeting, and please, if you have kids, please, please just skip this or turn it off. But they'll be having meetings, and, like, someone will be getting serviced while they're having a meeting, and I was like, you can't even read it because or I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I could read it because I had to skip the whole part, and you have no idea what the meeting was about
Yeah.
because it also included, like, a prostitute there just servicing people while they were
That
in a
is
meeting
too
in front of
much.
other people,
Did
and,
anybody finish it?
I think maybe somebody did. But I was the only person I think that was like, nope, I can't do it. It's just it did not align with my values, which I rarely say that, I think, on here about a book because a lot of books I'm like, no, I loved it. It was so good. I just skipped this part, but this one just really made me feel uncomfortable. It was but I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, when I was reading, I didn't know that's what I get because that's why you need a research of what you're reading because I was like, "Cool, it looks pretty," and then when you read the back, you're like, "Oh, princes of sin
Yeah.
and, of hell," and, like, the prince's name, one of them is, like, Lust, and one of them's name is Envy. I think this prince was Envy. The next book might be about lust. I don't even know what's gonna be in that. If this was an Envy, whatever. I've
Good.
said enough. I'm sure
Next
I will
time
have
out.
exact examples for next time, but it was just not for me. Yeah, and I was disappointed because this is the same lady that wrote Stalking Jack the Ripper,
Oh
which I
yeah.
did like it, and there was
That
no
but
she just
that was
YA.
YA.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this was, like,
MA.
X-rated.
Oh.
Yeah. This was, like, in the
Trash.
adult films, I don't know. So, it's a no for me.
Behind the
Yeah.
curtain.
Yeah.
Okay, book 7 for me was Jaws, which was an absolute disaster. I discussed this one full unhinged fashion on episode 8. So I know we don't talk much about star ratings here because we normally just like talk about the vibes and our feelings and like who might like it. This was like a 1.5 star for me. Like I'll just say it. It was not great. It was not I had nothing really good to say about it. But you can listen to all the reasons why
You
on
said
episode 8.
getting their jollies on.
It was so gross. I could not believe. I was like, why? Who? They were all lined up in the sand. I can't forget this. It's like burned in my memory. I'm like, why are you lined up in the sand? Grinding in the sand. Disgusting. Anyway, deprived. What is that word? Depravity.
Depraved.
Yeah, depraved humans. In that book you talked about, and in this book, like it never goes away. Because this book was written in when?
Yeah,
The 70s?
like, yeah.
So, see?
Yeah.
Disgusting. Okay, next.
My next book, 7, is Breaking the Dark by Lisa Jewell. This is the Marvel book based on Jessica Jones. I liked it. I talked about this in a past episode. It was fine. The more I look back on it, I think it was meh. It was fine. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. I'm glad I tried it, got outside of my comfort zone, but that's about it. But I read it. I read my short list.
You've read more than I thought you would, so that's good. Okay, my next one is book 8, Four Weekends and a Funeral. This is by Ellie Palmer. And actually, I'm currently reading this. So this released recently, and I had a very long wait on Libby for it, and it just came in today. So I started it, and I will say I don't really know much going into it because I purposely have not wanted to know much going into it, but I do know it's closed door, and I have seen a lot of positive things about it, like 5 stars, and I haven't really read further than that. But I'll report back soon because I'm reading it now.
Okay, my 8th book is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. I have not brought this to the show yet because we just haven't had time in our format, but I do plan to. But I will say I really did like it. It was not it was funny. It was very funny, and it's definitely set in the summer in like the UK where they don't have ACs, and so they're going through like this 90 something degree heat wave. Um, so you don't have to read in the summer, but I think if you're wanting a one last book like that, this was a good one. It was funny, it was heartwarming. I did like it. I read it.
Is that the one with the bubbles?
Yeah. It was
I've
cute.
been
I liked it.
I've been wanting to ask you about it and I was like, "Oh, she's probably saving it to bring it."
I will bring it to the show, do a whole format. I just haven't had a chance, but spoiler, I did like it.
Okay.
Okay.
For book 9, I'm talking about Illusion of Stars by Sarah Marie Page. This was one that I jumped to read quickly because all the vibes sounded right up my alley. I will say that this one has a lot of love. This has so many people who really love this book. And I I want to say that I thought the plot did have some really good elements that I liked, and it did have a lot of potential for me to be a book that I would connect with. But unfortunately, there were just more things that I didn't love than that I did, if that makes sense. I had a little bit of a hard time with some of the writing styles, and I just was confused a lot. And if you actually, now that I say that, like that's a theme. Like if I'm confused a lot, I I think I just don't love it. Like it reminds me of the time you talked about when the moon hatched and you were like, I'm just so confused. Should I be confused? No, I don't think I should be this confused. Like fantasy, it's hard to find the line because
Yeah.
I do think confusion comes with fantasy. But then also sometimes I'm like, no, I think I'm too confused. Anyway, that's all. If you really, really want to read the book, I would say read it, go look at other reviews. A lot of other people really liked it. It was just not for me, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. My last book is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I did buy this book on Pango. Um, I just have not had a chance to read it. I took it with me on vacation this last weekend. But I had my Kindle with me as well, and it was just so much easier for me to read my Kindle in the car,
Mhm.
especially like at night. We were driving at night,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's so nice because I could just flip my Kindle to dark mode and then I could read it anywhere, like in the bathroom, in the bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen, especially with my handy stand. I get messages all the time. That's probably the most things I get messages about are my Kindle case. And I'm like, "Yep, I've talked. It's from Grace. Books
I
by Grace."
I need to get one. Does yours have the bird on it? Or no?
Yes.
That one
Yeah,
was like, I think the one I thought was really, really cute. Yeah, it's
this one.
so pretty. And she drew it. I'm late
Yeah,
to
I
the.
didn't know that,
Okay,
and
I didn't know that either. And I was like, was this an obvious thing I was supposed to know? But she said something about how she's like, oh, I love it because it took so much time to draw or something. And I was like, you drew this? I didn't even say anything because I was like, I'm probably an idiot. And somehow that was obvious. But I was more impressed because I was like, oh, it's so cute. And she drew it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really nice. But physical books have become more and more difficult for me to read. Um,
Yeah.
Especially this God of the Woods. It's pretty big. It's just a little difficult to hold. I'm being a baby. It's just so much easier for me to read a Kindle. So I will read it. It is on my list to read soon. It wasn't convenient to read on vacation. So
I saw
yeah.
somebody recently say she's like, "Oh, I'm so used to reading Kindle that it's so hard to read paperback." And I feel like I that ta it takes me, I think like for sure twice as long to read a book if it's paperback, if not longer. It's not as convenient. And anyway, this lady said that because she's so used to the font being bigger on the Kindle, she's like, whenever I read a paperback,
Oh,
it is so tiny, like that she just gets used to seeing bigger font. And I was like, oh, that's,
that's like Iron Flame. Oh,
yeah.
even I don't even have really like eye issues like that. And I was like, "Oh, I may not be able to read this."
It was very small, very small. But Josh says I have eye issues, so that is partially me, but also
Yeah.
it was really small.
Okay. So is that all of them for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts at the end of it? Like looking back, would you change anything or what are your just overall thoughts about your list?
Okay, when going through my short list, I said this feels like a bad omen because I did enjoy one. I think one from this list, I was like, oh, I really, really liked it. And the rest were kind of like either just okay or no, did not enjoy, or DNF. So I'm like, what is the problem here? And Hillary was like, well, maybe you're just forcing yourself to read it, because it's the list and you may not be in the mood. To which I said, no, like I am in the mood. Like all of these I brought, like on a Monday or whenever we are recording, and then I started it that week. So I'm like, I was in the mood to read them. I think my problem is that I'm too excited about them. I don't know how to fix this.
I have a couple questions for you. So, how stringent are you on your short list? Like, you don't have just one book on your short list, do you? Or you truly just have one? Like, you know what book is next.
Okay, so I have like on my Kindle, I have a TBR folder, and I would say that has probably 6 books on it at any given time. And I will pick my next book most often from out of that 6. If I say a book is on our short list, like for me, then yes, it does make the priority go up, like not like 100%, but yes. And then here's another thing. If it's on Libby, then I feel pressure because I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
have to do it. And then my time is ticking, and Libby is like, there's 4 people waiting. And so then I'm like, well, I'm feeling like the pressure that I have to read it now, right now, because that's when it's available.
Yeah, that was my next question is do you think the fact that you say it that makes you be like something in you is like, I don't want to read it anymore, or I don't know, like, or I don't know.
Sometimes. I mean,
Like
yes,
if you didn't tell anyone about it, like maybe if you would enjoy it more than if you're like, I'm reading this next, everybody, and my Kindle is my Libby's ready, and then you're like, I don't know, I don't know.
you're like, never mind, forget it.
Yeah.
I think that it's like I'll put things on my short list. Like, example, the Libby, I think, is the biggest problem, where it'll be like, oh, Ballad of Songbirds and Snake is available. So then I'm
And you
like,
may not be ready in your
yes,
heart for it.
yes. But then I put it on my short list because
You've been
it's,
wanting to read it anyway.
yes. And so then, okay, so see, problem. And then another example is an arc, which none of these were arcs, I want to first of all say. But that has happened to me too, where it's like if an arc, I've gotten a lot better, where I read them either just like ahead of time, like I'm not rushing. Because if I'm like waiting, like I'm like, okay, that arc doesn't release until October. So I'm gonna wait until the week before to read it, then no, that is a disaster and that never was good for me in the past. So I don't do that anymore. Because then I will just hate it. Like I'll be like, well, I have to read it now, and then I'm rushing, and I don't know. But also keep in mind, I was in a terrible book funk for like the entire span of these reads. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know, guys, don't listen to me. Like
I
I'm
was gonna
in,
ask too, like, do you, in relation to your other reads, do you like the short list? Like, your success rate on the short list, is that the same as your normal other reads that weren't on the short list? Or do you find like you like books that surprise you more? Or I don't know what I'm trying to say. Does that make
I,
sense?
yeah, no, because I think whenever I looked at, like I did enjoy a lot of books, and I feel like compared, I think the short list was not a great, it was
You're
like,
like, and
okay.
now the short list, it will be no
Canceled.
more. Yeah.
Shortlist is canceled. No, I think that like the average rating of the shortlist compared to like my average rating for like everything I've read for that span of time, the shortlist would have a significantly lower
Yeah.
average rating
Yeah.
based on today alone. I don't know that it will always be like that because again, like I had one that I really liked, and then I had the 4 weekends and a funeral, which so far is good, knock on wood. So I'm like, I don't know, we could see. I think that it's just because I pick things for my short list that I'm like either time restricted, or I'm like, oh, I saw this on Instagram and I'm so excited. And then, like, example, the last one where it was like Draco Hermione, and I was very excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, it to me it didn't hit Draco Hermione. Or like the other one, Will Turner and Emma Swan, and I was like, I didn't get that impression at all. So
You probably need to see if readers say that versus whether
yeah, I
authors
don't
say that,
know.
maybe.
So I
I don't
think
know.
it's I go in with too specific expectations, maybe. I don't know. I
Something
don't
to think
know.
about. Well, I was looking at my list and I don't have a good success rate on mine at all. Like 2 5 stars. Let's see. I don't know what my other like a novel love story was not good. Breaking the Dark was just meh, fine. And the rest I haven't even read, a couple DNFs, but it doesn't bother me as much. I think because like the shortlist for me, because this is like Hannah does the shortlist. I literally don't know what I'm reading until I finish my book. And even then, I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading. Like, I'm testing books out to see if I like it or not, or if I want to keep on going. I'm very highly a mood reader. But to me, the shortlist is, I view it like this is a possibility. This is on my TBR.
You're like, you thought I had a Turbo Man here?
Okay, we said
No,
that
no.
no one got it. So no one got coffee. No, I was worried. I was like, "Oh man, I'm actually gonna have to send someone like
Has that one
coffee."
aired yet?
Yeah, so I was like, "Dang it. Oh well." Yeah, so I'm like to me, it's just, on the list of I I'm interested in reading this, but then if I read a couple I have no limits on DNF, which we'll talk about that. I don't care. Like, if I'm reading it and I'm like, "Nope, not for me," done, move on. So but that makes me really volatile, and obviously, like, I love some, I hate some. I don't know. But I thought it was interesting to see. I liked actually documenting, like, books that I have read, because to me, my short list, I always have, like, a few books, like you said, a handful of books that I'm like, "I'm interested." Like, I'm on a book right now on a V. Schwab book, and I'm thinking, "Okay, after this, I wanna read maybe The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang." I have that on my Kindle already, and then I also have an arc that I wanna get to, and then I have, like, 2 another one by Jessica Maxwell, which is Libby, and I was
Hmm.
on a wait, but I'll be honest, if I don't feel like reading it, I'm just not gonna read it, so
And that's what I think I need to do better at. Like, example, like if a book is ready and I'm not in the mood for it, I need to like be okay just being
just
like,
sending it back, yeah.
yeah. Or even like, because
Or
sometimes I
just
know,
or just releasing it and then putting a hold again later.
yeah, yeah. Because in my brain, I think it, yeah. I'm like, I think it's probably part of our personality types. And I'm like, I need to do better at that, at not being like, or yeah, pushing through it because I'm like, okay, well, when's the next time I'd be able to read this book if it's on, a long waiting list and I'm just a cheapskate and I'm like, I'm not willing to buy it. And especially if I'm like struggling through it, I'm like, well, I'm not definitely not gonna buy it. So I just need to be able to, yeah, DNF, and we'll talk more about that later because which is good because I do feel like I am like in the middle of like evolving with DNF because I didn't ever used to DNF and now I'm kind of changing. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, but I have liked it. I have liked like, it is good for me. I feel like you probably need to relax a little bit more, and I need to keep myself it's good for me to keep myself like, some accountability, and not I don't feel like, "Oh, I have to read these books because I have to answer." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'll be embarrassed. I'll just tell everyone I didn't read them." Like, I'd rather be embarrassed now than have to suffer through trash, you know? But 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 I do like having them. So, like, there's a few, like, The God of the Woods, like, that's high on my list, and then this reminded me, like, "Oh, On Wings of Dust and Ash." I still wanna read that because sometimes, like, my brain is so, like, in and out
Mm,
that I'm like, "Oh, I really wanna read it." Gone. Like, poof, gone. So, it's good for me to just look back and be like, "Oh, yeah, I still wanna read that."
yeah, for sure. Anyway,
So, yeah. So, let us know what you think about the short list, and we are always open to other segment ideas too. Like, I know one that got cut was we did a deep dive on it instead of reading accessories. Uh, but that was my idea because I was like, every episode I'm going to bring in my favorite like drink while I'm reading, or my favorite blanket, or my favorite candle, or my favorite ASMR room. So maybe I'll do that too. Maybe I'll have like a mood reader segment eventually or something.
I also thought like, oh, we could do like book news or like if there's something like a new book released or like Abby, she released information.
Oh,
Like, you know what I mean? Like if there's something we're excited about, not everything, but if it's something that we're like,
book
"Oh,
related,
yeah.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder came out, or
Yeah."
the tea about It Ends With Us.
Oh my gosh. That's a whole episode.
Our sister is hopefully going to be a guest co-host soon, Heather. And she read that one recently, which is a book I will not be reading, but I think it's good because I'm like, oh, I definitely won't be talking about that book. So,
Anyway,
anyway,
I guess that's it.
yeah, we'll see how this goes. I've been doing the show notes, all the episodes end with me. I'm like, so yeah, that's it. Bye. If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys. We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mentioned in today's episode. Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads. And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.